welcome back to Halloween Horror Reviews 2024. I hope you guys are having a great time with this year's reviews because, man, I've been having such a blast covering more horror films for you all this year. And today's review is a review that I have been very excited to be talking about for quite some time now. This particular film is a movie that I had heard about for really a long time, ever since the movie came out back in, let's just say, the late 2000s, and it's a movie that I am happy to say that, like with my review of Brain Dead, this movie is a first time view for me. Moving on to today's review, I'm here to talk about 2009 Splice, directed by Vincenzo Natali. By the way, I hope I just pronounced his name right. If not, to you, sir, I am really sorry. I did my best. In the events of Splice, we follow two genetic engineers portrayed by Adrian Brody and Sarah Polley, whose job it is to take different animals' DNA and splice it together, roll credits, I couldn't resist, into new hybrid animals for medical use. However, when they have the idea to splice human DNA into the mix, they create something that's rather, let's just say, interesting. Before I continue on with today's video, I just wanted to say welcome to my channel, everybody. For those of you who are coming back to my channel for the very first time, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a future video, or it's a future review, reaction, top 5, or whatever I have coming your way, and join me on my journey to 10K subscribers and beyond, because believe me when I say this, guys, you are not going to miss the cool shit I have coming your way. And for those of you who are coming back to my channel, welcome back, guys. You have no idea how happy I am to see your faces once again. Also, one more thing, let's start our conversation below. What did you guys think of Splice? Did you guys like Splice? Do you love the film, or do you even hate the film for that matter? Let me know below. Alrighty, guys, so let's get into Splice. Splice was a film that, like I had just mentioned to you all, before I saw this movie for the first time, literally actually like a month ago or so, it was a movie that I had always heard rumblings about, because Splice was a film that came out, like I said, back in 2009, and it's a film that ever since it came out, I heard some very interesting things about it. I kept on hearing that it was a creature feature, a movie that it was kind of one of those high concept monster alien films. I had heard this movie was disturbing for one particular reason, actually for a couple particular reasons, but also the fact that it was a movie that it was more interesting, disturbing, but by the end of it, it'll kind of leave you going one or two ways. I gotta tell you all, Splice is a really good high concept horror film, science fiction horror film for that matter. When it comes down to the performances in Splice, there are only two performances that I gotta talk about, and those being Adrian Brody and Sarah Polley. Something in particular that I love about the relationship is knowing what they both see and essentially the potential of what this human alien thing could possibly be, as basically Adrian Brody sees the difficulties and essentially the monstrosity of what this thing could be like, and Sarah Polley's character goes like, no, this could actually be a huge breakthrough in medical technology. And I love how these two not only do want to work together to see what could be the possible outcome, unfortunately, to the possible detriment of what could actually happen to them, but at the same time, seeing the horrors, like I mentioned to you guys earlier, the monstrosity of this experiment that these two are tackling on. Something else that I really like, and in fact, I loved about Splice, was the directing by Vincenzo Natali. From what I'm aware, he also directed Cube, which, full disclosure, I have never seen Cube, so who knows? Maybe that might come in the pipeline for Halloween Horror Reviews at some point down the line. Vincenzo Natali really does take a really interesting concept, and he creates a very interesting movie, not really scary, which I'll mention the horror about later on, but still, and where he takes this concept to, I thought was really rather interesting. Splice is also a very stylishly shot film. One of the things in particular that I love about the cinematography of Splice is not only the colors that Splice uses, but just the overall mood and the vibe that Splice brings, especially given that the weather and the overall look of Splice, it's the tone, the atmosphere, and the overall look of the film that gives it this very disturbing feeling to it as well. This movie, like I mentioned to you guys earlier, Splice is definitely a film that definitely is more of a concept film, but at the same time, where this film takes that concept and the horrors of that said concept, I thought was very, very well done. Especially, guys, in sequences where Dren is all grown up. And my god, those bits lead to, say the least, some very, and I mean very, disturbing sequences. There are some really disturbing bits that make you go like, oh boy. And for those of you who have seen this movie, there is one scene in particular. You'll know what I'm talking about if you've seen this movie. It takes place, I want to say, near the third act. And this scene, yeah. Once Dren gets to a certain point in this movie, that thing, oh boy, it's, disturbing is a word I definitely use for this thing.
I'm prepared, you old fuck!
As much as I enjoyed Splice, this movie I unfortunately wouldn't call it a great film. I think it's good, but do I think it is a great sci-fi horror film? Unfortunately, I don't, but let me tell you, it comes really close. I had mentioned this earlier, but I might as well bring it up again, guys. One of my biggest criticisms for Splice is that this movie, I wouldn't say is a particularly, well, scary film. I mean, don't get me wrong to you guys. Are there bits of this movie that are definitely disturbing, unsettling, and very, let's just say, off-putting? Most definitely yes. But I wouldn't necessarily call Splice a scary film. In the third act, this movie does really go into more of the horror genre, and the third act of this movie definitely goes places, and I'll mention a specific bit in a little bit. When it comes down to one of my biggest criticisms for Splice, it is this. Now, obviously, no spoilers here, but there is a particular sequence that happens after a very disturbing scene, to say the least. Let me say this. This particular scene takes, let's just say, a lot, and I mean a lot of jumps and logic to the point where you just be thinking, what? Are you kidding me? Quite a few jumps in logic, alongside a couple of other sequences, and what, don't get me wrong too, guys, the characters in this movie do sometimes make some really poor, in a word, decisions. If you're able to take some really strong leaps of faith with this movie, I do think you'll be able to enjoy this movie. Going on to easily my biggest criticism with Splice, and this is the thing that I really disliked, and it's the thing that kept me from loving this movie. And that, to me, was the ending of the film, the last 15 minutes. There are multiple people that I have talked to that have said that the ending of Splice really messed them up, and there are some people that really dislike the ending of Splice. Now, where do I fall in this category? I fall on the part that really disliked Splice's ending. How this movie ended and the events that preceded the ending of the film made me go like, you have gotta be fucking kidding me. So overall, while I dislike the ending, Splice is nonetheless a very well-acted film with a really cool concept with some most definitely disturbing bits. All in all, I'm gonna give Splice a 3.5 out of 5. If you're looking for an interesting mesh of sci-fi and horror, look no further. I hope you enjoyed my review of Splice. If so, please hit the like button, or if you dislike the review, hit the dislike button. If you guys want to see my previous 2 reviews, please click right there or right there. And of course, until my next review of Halloween Horror Reviews 2024, I will see you all next time.